Hi, I'm Gia, and I just wanted to have a chat with all you mixed kids out there because I know that what we're going through is crazy and hard and difficult, and I know that it's really emotionally heavy and just as much for you as it is for me. So I wanted to talk uh, to you because I feel like there's an experience that we're grappling with that is different than other people. So, growing up, was very. I, growing up, just always had people ask, "What are you?" And as much as I tried to fit in, I always had these people reminding me of how I was different. And they would ask me, like, just strangers would come up to me on the street and look at me and say, "What are you?" And it would shift between a kind of, "Ooh, you're so exotic, what are you?" and a kind of aggressive, "I can't figure out what you are, so you need to tell it to me." And what I learned over time is that I needed to figure out how I identify. And I identify as mixed. And I had a really hard time growing up because I saw these mono-ethnic people and they would talk about their experiences and blah, 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 but I didn't feel like I saw people who looked like me and identified like me. The one exception being Tiger Woods. And I remember him growing up, he would say, I'm not one thing. If I were to say I'm black, it means that I'm denying my mother. And, it's important to me to honor all of who I am. And especially for those of us who are raised predominantly by the side of our family that isn't black, I think there's this extra kind of challenge, because it's like I grew up in this world, in this loving family with these amazing people, and they are a huge part of who I am. And most of how I identify, most of my cultural practices, most of what I'm used to, like that's me. And so for you to tell me that I'm this other thing, like it doesn't make sense to me, it doesn't feel right. So I've spent my whole life asserting the ways and making sure people knew that I'm not black, I'm mixed. And I would do things. I mean, I still do. Like, I straighten my hair sometimes, and I would notice the difference in the way I was treated, having more ethnic ambiguity versus being perceived to be belonging to a certain ethnic group. And I would really challenge people who would put me in a box because I never belonged. And I feel like that's part of the identity of mixedness, is that you don't feel often like you belong. Like I didn't belong amongst my white friends. And when I would interact with black kids at school, like they would a lot of times be so mean to me. And I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere. And I feel like that's the classic mixed kid experience, is feeling like you don't belong. And that's why I've always pushed so hard for this like identity, our own identity, that is what mixed is, and that's what feels good to me. However, I've been thinking about that, like, since what happened with George Floyd and since what's happening around the world. There's always been this internal something, and it's coming out now. And I've had like and I don't know if you've had this, but I've had friends reach out to me and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about you." And what I've realized is that no matter how much I've asserted myself as being mixed, so many of them have always thought of me as black. And it's been really hard for me to think about that and what that means, because I've never felt black. And I've been doing a lot of research into things like white fragility and just around race and protesting and things. And I've been noticing the more I've been doing that, the more people have been tagging me like, oh, Black photographer, or, oh, hire this Black photographer. And it just doesn't feel like me. It doesn't feel like who I am, and it hurts me. So I've been thinking a lot about why it hurts me. And it's hurt me because I've always this whole time felt like I would be dishonoring, I would be negating like this whole huge part of my family. But I've also realized something, that I've grown up in this culture, and I'm in the United States, but I believe it's the same no matter where you are in the world. I've grown up in a culture where we live, breathe, eat, sleep racist ideology. And I've been infected by the poison of racism, just like everybody else. And while there is a part of me that does believe in having an identity as a mixed person, I'm also now accepting that part of that was to distance myself from Blackness, because I grew up in a culture that tells me that Blackness is wrong and it's shameful and it's not as good. And of course that's not true. And it's not my fault that I grew up in a culture that told me these things. But it's been impacting my behavior. And I've had to realize that I have racism that lives in me, just like everyone else. And this was one of the ways it's been coming out. And I've always thought about, people who have said, yeah, you're Black, you need to own it, you're Black. And I've always thought about where that comes from. And it comes from this one drop rule, right? Which was meant to have an excuse to torture more people. Because as people started mixing, they either became closer to whiteness, or they became people that you had the right lawfully to control. And I remember watching a little bit of Roots growing up, and just it traumatized me, and ever since then I've just avoided understanding that history, because it just felt too scary to look at. Because the truth is, me, probably you, my cousins who have white skin, straight hair, and green eyes, because we share ancestors who are Black, we would have been tortured just like everybody else. And that's a really hard thing to realize when you grow up in a culture that has taught you subconsciously that because you're closer to whiteness, you're not like that. And that's the truth. And I don't want to be racist. I don't think anybody wants to be racist. And so I think the responsibility is seeing it and owning it and trying to change it. And what I've come to learn in the last few days is that Blackness is an umbrella. And it includes experiences from people all over the world. People who've grown up in different experiences in the continent of Africa, people who have grown up in different experiences in the United States, the Afro-Latinos in Central and South America, people all over the world, indigenous peoples all over the world. Blackness is an umbrella that has room for people like us. And it's important right now. I mean, I guess it's always been important, but I'm realizing that right now it's really important to own that and to sit under that umbrella, because the more we come together and the more we support each other, the more change that can happen. And there's power in me saying, yes, I'm mixed and I'm Black. I'm Black. And, I think about coming out as gay, and I didn't even feel this much with it. I just came out and I had a party for myself and I felt great. But because of the racism that I've ingested over my whole life, I have all these feelings of shame and fear around identifying as Black. And I don't feel Black. I don't know what that feels like. I don't know. And I've been having conversations, and I had a conversation with my amazing cousin Desiree, who's also mixed, but identifies as a mixed Black woman. And I said out loud for the first time, which is so embarrassing to say, but I said out loud, I don't want to be Black. And she is amazing. And she said, that's actually the Blackest thing you've ever said, because you're seeing it and owning it and starting to understand what it means. And starting to look at all the lies that we've been told about what that means. And I realized that all through my life, I've been self-sabotaging because there was always a part of me that hated a part of me. And that was running from a part of me. And I'm trying now to change that. And to own that. And I really hope that one day I can do enough work where I can be proud of that part of me, that I can be proud to be Black. But today the best I can do is to accept it, because I'm very new in this journey. And I think that's when they talk about privilege of mixed kids, I think that's what they're talking about, that I could have gone 36 years without having to look at a lot of this stuff. Like, yes, it was always there, but I could bury it and survive and function in the world. And the microaggressions and things like that, they weren't obvious. And that's what they mean. Like, I've experienced a lot of privilege in that I'm now just dealing with it. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all the people that I've hurt unintentionally because of my own internalized racism, and I'm sorry I'm sorry because I have these ancestors that must have just been shaking their heads the whole time. But I'm doing my best and I'm trying, and I would encourage all of you mixed kids, if you can, because I understand that a year ago, if somebody had told me you're Black, I would have said, don't talk to me, you don't know me, you don't know my story, you don't get to tell me who I am. And so I get that you need to honor where you're at in your journey, but if you can, start to imagine yourself in that space under the Black umbrella. There's power in that. And there's relief in that, in stopping the fight and knowing that, like, yes, I am mixed, and yes, I honor all the parts of me. And part of that is this complicated history, because I have probably descendants of people who tried to own other people, and I have also a part of me, I'm a descendant of people who were tortured and kidnapped for hundreds of years by those people. And it is a tough experience, but I think there's something really beautiful in actually feeling like there's a space, because I've never felt like there was a space for me. And maybe there's a space for us that's under this Black umbrella, and that the privilege that comes with that we can use to support other people in that umbrella. And the more we can share our experiences, I think there's power in that. And learning to love ourselves and learning to be Black. I feel like I'm gonna have to keep practicing saying it, because right now even saying I'm Black just it doesn't feel right. But I'm a mixed Black woman, and that makes me a Black woman, and that's okay. All right, well, I just wanted to say that and talk through it, and I don't know. I just wish I had had someone to help me talk through everything and figure it out. And I just want you to know I see you and I love you, and I honor you wherever you're at in your mixed kid journey. And if you do have the capacity to start seeing it, I hope that for you. I mean, it's not easy and it sucks, and I am feeling shitty most of the time, but I also feel relieved. And I feel like there was a part of myself that wasn't fully living, because I didn't fully want to be seen, even to myself, if that makes sense. And I don't know, I'm hopeful that in really embracing and accepting things, that it will change things for me, and I can love myself more. Because I think anytime you deny a part of yourself, you can't fully love yourself. And anytime you experience shame, you're worried that you're not lovable. And you are. All parts of you are totally lovable, just like all parts of me are totally lovable. And I think it's a journey to figure that out. And yeah, I'm sending you lots of love on your journey.